Nofri Wonjevin Faipishor Pios Rein Inti Aspi in Reminkimi, Mfu Tanakati Woh Israik Impi Achomfat in Reminkimi. Hello everyone, this is the first lesson in the Coptic language. Today we shall understand and write the Coptic alphabet. En shorp uwon ne shontis nav in shol uwo, tina es vo POY in te nin shol in pi achomfat in reminkimi. First, there are 32 letters and we will learn each of the letters of the Coptic alphabet. I'm going to be switching to just English now because I want to go over a brief history of the Coptic script, the meaning behind the word Coptic, so you can have a better understanding of that at first. The word Coptic comes from the Coptic word kapta, which translates to house. Ka translates to soul. Ta, ancient Egyptian god of architecture, engineering, all over translates to the house of the soul of Ta. This name was used as a nickname to Egypt by ancient Egyptians. And when the Greeks arrived in Egypt, they couldn't pronounce that word, they pronounced it with a Greek accent, added a suffix which is usually found in Greek names, which is the O sema, or like the OS sound. It became Aegyptos instead of Ikapta. This name, since at that time the Greeks were governing Egypt, and the Greek name became the popular name for Egypt for other foreign countries, everyone used that name. But the Egyptians themselves, they used the original word, which is Ikapta, or Kimi, which is the actual name for Egypt. From that Greek word, the Romans came to Egypt. It also gave the Latin word Aegyptus, which then became Egypt in English, and you can see it's similar to the Greek, just a few minor differences. If you look back to the Greek word, again, since that was the word that was known by other countries, when the Arabs conquered Egypt, knew the Greek word for Egypt, but they shortened it, and kind of also to pronounce it in the Arabic language. They also removed the OC at the end because they knew it was part of the Greek language, and so we gave that word Gopt or Gipt. And this was the word that was used to distinguish the indigenous population of Egypt from themselves, and in the Egyptian dialect they became Kipt or Ipti. In English it gave the word Copt or Coptic. As you can see, they all stem from the same word Ikapta, whether it's Egypt or Coptic. So both linguistically have the same meaning. So in Coptic, there are 6 major dialects. The first dialect is Bahariac, which is the dialect of Lower Egypt and the Delta. Fayumic, which is the dialect of the Fayum region in Egypt. Mesochemic, or Middle Egyptian, which is the dialect for all of the cities in Middle Egypt. Lycopolitan, or Assiotic, the dialect of Assyut and the areas around it. Akhmimic, the dialect of Akhmim. The last dialect is Sahidic dialect, or Saidic, the dialect for Upper Egypt. The 2 main dialects that you will usually find that can be taught are Bahariac and Saidic. That's because those dialects were the ones that were able to survive, and now we're able to teach those dialects. There are, of course, some rules that we still know about the other dialects and grammar and how they were, but usually the ones that will be taught are the Bahariac and the Saidic. The Saidic one, there's lots of manuscripts that were found in the Saidic dialect, so a lot of research papers that you would see about Coptic usually will be done in the Saidic dialect. But in this video, we're going to be teaching the Bahariac dialect because that's the dialect that the church uses, and so there's a lot of textbooks that we can use for that dialect, so it'll be easier to teach that dialect, and it's also the most popular dialect for Copts today. Again, because we hear it in church, so it's the one that we're most familiar with. But along the way, I will note the differences between Saidic and the Bahariac dialect, as well as different words that might be found in each dialect. There are different ways you can learn the Coptic alphabet, either by categorizing them by vowels and consonants. You could also go ahead by characterizing the letters that look like English letters and have the same pronunciation, and then another category where they have a different pronunciation even though they look similar. I like to go through it just alphabetically, and so it could be easier to learn it along the way. You don't have to go back and memorize the order. But if you feel like you want to learn it in a different way, you can just do that by yourself, categorize them in the way that you feel is easier for you. So like we said at the start of the video, the Coptic alphabet does consist of 32 letters. The first 25 of them are borrowed from the Greek alphabet. However, they're not borrowed just like a copy-paste from the Greek alphabet. They're still somewhat connected to hieroglyphics, and I will go through that a bit. I'll just speak a bit about hieroglyphics now so you can also remove that confusion around your head and what's the difference between Coptic and hieroglyphics. So hieroglyphics is the script that was popular in ancient Egypt. It was a writing system. It consists of characters and symbols that might make up a word or a letter. One symbol could have either one sound or two sounds, etc. In the Old Kingdom, there were around 400 characters, and then it became approximately 6,000 over time, and so more characters started to develop, and these characters were again taken from nature, for instance, birds and animals, etc. To be more familiar with it, it was similar to what we have as emojis now. If I place a heart in a text box, I don't need to go and write it out. So we discussed the first one, hieroglyphics, which is the most popular one, and again it was also considered a sacred text. And the other script was the hieratic script. It was a simplified version of hieroglyphics, and that was used by priests, again in sacred texts. The last script we have is Demotic, which was created by the Egyptian population. It was even more simple than hieratic, didn't have all the rules that each of the hieroglyphic script or the hieratic script had, and it was way more simple again for people to use. They could write notes, etc. Anything that they wanted to write, they would use the Demotic script. And it was extremely popular around the Greek conquest. During the Greek conquest of Egypt, in order to preserve the Egyptian language, the Egyptian priests started to use the Greek alphabet to write what they would say in Egyptian or Coptic. And the Egyptian priests did that not only because they wanted to preserve the language, but because also they found that the Greek alphabet contained the same sounds, but using less characters instead of Demotic. For instance, in Demotic there could be about 5 characters to represent one sound, whereas the Greek alphabet you only had one letter. However, again, they did tweak it a bit to make it look like Demotic, and I will show you that in a minute. Last script we have is Coptic. It was that stage where the ancient Egyptian priests started to write the Greek alphabet instead of the Demotic, but they also noticed that there were sounds in the Egyptian language that weren't present in the Greek alphabet. So they took those letters from the Demotic script, which represented the sounds that they didn't have in the Greek language, and placed them in that alphabet, and that created the Coptic script. So those letters from the Demotic script were 7 letters: Shai, Phi, Chai, Hori, Ganga, Chima, Ti. That alphabet then became what is known as the Coptic alphabet or the Coptic script. And we also have several magical spells that were found written in Coptic, dating to around the 1st century BC, a bit before where Coptic was actually more and more popular. The Coptic script became more and more popular with Christianity because more people started to translate the Bible that was written in Greek to Coptic, which made it even a more popular script. We're going to start with the first letter in the Coptic alphabet, which is Alpha. Alpha, pronounced as an ah sound, so like father. A word for that in Coptic is ahom. Ahom, which is eagle. Like we said, Coptic script is still connected to hieroglyphics. So in hieroglyphics, the A sound or the A sound was written as an eagle, and that's because, again, using that Coptic word, ahom, it starts with an alpha. So therefore, it was used to represent the A sound. The second letter we have is Vita. Vita. In hieroglyphics, the Vita was written as a leg. If you kind of look at it over here, you would see if you just removed that top circle, it would kind of still form that leg shape. The Vita is pronounced as a V if there's a vowel after it or a consonant after it. The word Vaki has an alpha after the vita, which is a vowel, so it'll be pronounced with a V sound. Va-ki. So we have the word tov, which means to ask or to pray. It has a consonant after it, so it'll be still pronounced with a V, so tov. If it's at the end of the word, it'll be pronounced as a B, similar to the word nib, nib. If there is, however, a sema or a shy after it, it'll be pronounced as a B, like the word lopsh, lopsh, or the word gips, gips. In names, it will be pronounced as a B or a V depending on the actual name. Barbara is pronounced with a B, so you'll pronounce it B. Or the name Verena is pronounced with a V, so you'll pronounce it with a V. The word Ava, Ava, it consists of an alpha, vita, vita, alpha. Since there are two vitas, it would form the V sound. You would pronounce it Ava. The third letter is Ramma. Ramma. This one you would not find a lot in Coptic words. It's mostly in the Greek words that are used in the Coptic language. There are two pronunciations for that one. Actually, three pronunciations for that one, sorry. The first one is R sound. Think of it as a GH. So the pronunciation of the R sound, usually if it's followed by an alpha, O, or nishti in Coptic. We still haven't gone through that one, but know those vowels, if they come after the Rama, then it will be pronounced as a R sound. For instance, in the word Arapi, which means love. But this is also of Greek origin as well. And if it has E, Iota, Eta, Epsilon after it, will be pronounced as a G sound. So just like in English, the G sound, but always a G sound. So for instance, in the word agios, which is saint or holy. The other pronunciation of it is the N sound. If there's a kappa or a ki or zeta after it, it'll be pronounced as an N sound. So for this word, ananki, ananki, there is a kappa after the ramma, so it'll be pronounced with an N sound, ananki. If there are two rammas, like the word angelos, you can say there are two rammas. The first one will be pronounced with an N sound, and the second one, since there is an A after it, will be pronounced as a G sound. So angelos. We have delta. You would pronounce it as a TH, like in this. In name, so if you have a name, you would use a D sound. Otherwise, it's used as a TH. Adam in Coptic, it will be Adam, Adam. Word deacon, diakon, diakon. The last letter for today is E, E. This is pronounced as a sound in English, so like in the word may or rain. Also, it's similar to in French when you have the accent aigu, the e sound. So an example of this in Coptic would be the word en, which means monkey. We'll go through the rest of the alphabet in the next video. See you later. Ogai.